Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick here. So today I'm doing a bit of an update on my modern Jeskai control deck for Magic. So kind of want to show off some changes I made to the deck, and yeah, just to kind of talk about it in general. So the main changes I made to this particular deck is I went from more of a draw goal style to more of a proactive. I'm gonna play some threats and hopefully you can't deal with it sort of style. So you may be really aware of what that might mean. So we're gonna go for more of a Nulldrifter, Flage sort of action, and be hopefully less passive and more proactive with the deck. So the way I'm gonna break down this deck profile is I'm gonna break it down by basically interaction, creatures, and then lands. So kind of give you an idea of how I built the deck and talk about some card choices. All right, so let's get into it. So we're gonna talk about interactions first, and or at least counter magic, right? So what we got here is we got 4 consign to memory, 4 dress down, 4 counter spell, and 2 forces of negation. So let's kind of talk about consign first, right? So consign, if you didn't know, really good card. The way it works in this particular deck is that you can use it on your invoke triggers. So if you're trying to invoke a Nulldrifter or maybe a Solitude, or even if you're casting the Flage, you can target that trigger, stop it from happening, and keep that creature on the board. So ideally, that's what you're using the consign for. And consign in this particular meta right now is really good. There's a lot of Eldrazi decks going around. There's a couple of artifacts decks here and there. And if not, you can just hit their trigger abilities, which is still really good here. So in general, I think Consign's a pretty impactful card. It hasn't really been dead for me in any of my particular game. Maybe if I draw this and nothing else and they're not really doing anything, then yeah. But that's just counter magic in general. It doesn't work against everything, but in general, I think Consign's pretty good. Dress Down, also really good against most of the creature-based decks in today's format. Um, so you can hit, ideally the way it works is turn 2, you play Dress Down during their end step. It persists through your turn. And then you can then cast Nulldrifter, draw 2, and then Nulldrifter will stick on the board. You can also do that with the Flage, but you ideally don't want to be just casting Flage for nothing. But if you think your opponent can't deal with the Flage on turn 3, then yeah, that's something you could do. But yeah, Dress Down, really good. Good for just cycling cards if you just need, to look for lands or something like that. It does draw you 1. And it sets you up for just having, for having your play on turn 3. If not, you can use it as disruption against your opponent. I use it against Titan. I use it against, even like Bowmasters, for example. If I go Dress Down and they have a Bowmaster on the board, that I can safely cast Nulldrifter, or I can cast Consign, or any of my draw cards, for example. So yeah, Dress Down, solid card. Good against Zoo, even if they have like a Draco on the board. You can Dress Down it, turn off all their abilities, and then just easily remove the Draco and anything else they have on the board. Good against also like Construct artifacts, or Kabu. If they have Kabu, you can just play this and kill Kabu. So yeah, overall, really good card. Next we have Counterspell. I don't really want to talk about too much about Counterspell. This is more of a personal choice. I know a lot of Dress Down builds don't play Dress Down. Nulldrifter builds don't play Counterspell, namely because oftentimes you're tapped out. So having Counterspell when you're tapped out is kind of what do you call it, detrimental. So, but me personally, I don't mind playing draw goal when I need to, and if I don't mind tapping out if I don't feel like my opponent has any threats that I care for, or if I think they have threats that I do care for, I will just keep counter magic available when I can. But yeah, and then force negation, same idea is like if you do tap out, forces will help. Generally, you're probably going to be forcing away Consign. If Consign's not good in that particular matchup, you can just feed Consign to the force. But anyways, 2 forces is good for that type of deal when you are tapped out. All right, I'm going to talk about my choices of card draw. I do have 2 Brain Surges. Like I said, I'm not playing Get Lost. Usually people play Get Lost because they don't mind tapping out because they are a tap out deck. However, since I'm playing Counterspell, I can't really afford to tap out, on turn 3 or whatever, right? So Brain Surge allows me to be able to play instant speed draw card. It's also 3 mana, which is nice. Some other cards you can play if you didn't want to play Brain Surge, you can play Archmage Charm, you can play Memory Deluge, you can play Consult the Star. Problem with Archmage is that, it's 3 blue, which is kind of hard to play, and you're just drawing 2 random cards. You're not really able to select what you're drawing, which I mean that's what the Nulldrifter already does. So I didn't want to double up on Nulldrifter. It's nice that Charm is also a 3 mana counterspell, but it's kind of not that great in this particular meta right now. So I opted not to play Archmage. Memory Deluge is nice. The flashback you never really do, so it's always usually just top 4, add 2. But if that's the case, then I'd rather play Consult the Star Charts. I tested out Consult a little bit, and it's pretty good. The main problem I found with Consult is that I'm a greedy player, right? So I'm usually never really casting it for 2 mana or the non-kicker value. I'm always trying to play kicker value, so that's meaning that I have to cast this on 4, right? The problem with that is that on turn 4, if you want to be proactive, if you're holding up Consign with, I don't know, a Flage or a Nulldrifter, then I'd rather be doing that rather than just drawing and going and then casting this. So that's kind of the conflict right there, where if I have Brain Surge, I can still do that game plan with Consign. So I can go Brain Surge, Consign, Flage, or Consign Null, and have a sort of proactive play there. The only thing with Brain Surge is it's a little tricky to play with, right? So similar to Brainstorm, it works well in conjunction with a fetch land. It works well on your own turn, actually. Like, you rather be playing Brainstorm and Brain Surge on your own turn. That way you can dig for more and then reset your hand. But most of the time I am just casting Brain Surge on my opponent's turn. And so, like Brainstorm, it will lock you into your draws for the next couple of turns if you don't have a way to sort of remove those draws. The thing is, with Brain Surge is you're still drawing 1 card, so you're still accelerating those cards that you would have drawn anyways by 1, so it's not the worst. I think in that respect, it's better than Brainstorm when you don't have a fetch land. It's because you're still accelerating your draw by 1. So that way, you're only really locked behind 1 card rather than like 2 cards with Brainstorm. So that's what I like about Brain Surge. It still plays into Bowmaster, so you gotta be careful about Bowmaster. If they Bowmaster when you cast this, it's kind of. So if you're playing against any black deck that you have that you think that has a potential to play Bowmaster, just wait until they cast that Bowmaster and then Brain Surge. Next, we got our somewhat of our removal suite here. So let me just kind of pull that out. So we have 2 Galvanic Discharge, 2 Prismatic, 3 Wrath, and 2 Teferi here. So Wrath is just Wrath. Not really much to say about it. I don't want to play 4 copy because it can kind of clog your hand because we don't always have enough energy to play it. So I opted just to play 3 Wrath and just go with that. Teferi, still a solid card. Turn off their interaction, force them to deal with Teferi, or just slowly die to your deck full of counter magic and potential threats. So Prismatic Ending kind of double ups as a Wrath of the Sky. but it is also good for cheap removal. The max you'll get in this deck is just X is equal to 2, so you'll never get anything more than CMC 3. But it's nice to still kill CMC 1 permanents like Amulet, Monkeys, things like that. Kills Bowmasters. But yeah, just good removal, and it's also a good fodder for Solitude, since you do need more white cards in your deck, and this kind of helps to bump up that the white amount. And then to discharge here, discharge is just like with Prismatic, it's just a good cheap removal, and you can bank some of your energy sometimes if you do need to blow up things for more. So you can always target like a monkey or a bowmaster and then store up 2 energy for later. Or you can even target your own stuff if you want to use Wrath of Sky. So let's say you have, I don't know, it's a fairy on the board, or you have Nulldrifter and you just need 3 energy just to charge up your Wrath for a bigger explosion. Then yeah, you just target your own stuff or their stuff and just pay 0. So kind of nice in that sense. All right, next off here we got the creatures, which is pretty straightforward. You have 3 Flage, 4 Solitude, and 4 Nulldrifter. So the only thing I've seen that people do sometimes is they'll either play 4 Flages or they'll play 4 Drifter. I'm in the mindset that I do like Drifter a little bit better because Drifter with Dress Down works really well. Dress Down and Flage doesn't work that well because, you don't get any value out of Flage if you're playing Dress Down and Flage. Same thing with Consign. I do like Drifter and Consign a little bit better. It's also nice that it's got Flying and Annihilator, so it is an actual pretty decent threat. Or if you have nothing else to do on your turn and you're just top decking or whatever, you can just cast the Drifter for 7 mana, or you cast it for 3 and just draw your 2 cards. So a couple things to do with Nulldrifter. I don't think I've ever cast it for 7 mana, but there are times where I've had the ability to do so, but I just kind of decided not to because I want to keep up open magic or open mana for that. So yeah, Solitude, just Solitude. Namely, this is really good against Emrakul. There are a lot of Eldrazi decks running around right now, so you might want to play something that's able to get rid of Emrakul so that you don't just die in the turns that they have Emrakul out on the field. Generally, Emrakul is uncounterable most of the time, because if they have Caverns or something like that. So yeah, just Solitude, good removal. Not much to say about it. All right, let's move on to mana base here. So I have 10 fetches, 4 flooded, 2 arids, 2 Tarn, and 1 of each of the other blue lands. I don't have 2 more Tarns. I don't have more arid Mesa, so I decided to just throw in the 2 blue fetches. But yeah, if you do have Tarns, I'd probably play 4 Tarns, or you can do like 3 arid, 3 Tarns if you wanted to. But yeah, my deck is still mostly blue, so I don't mind having just the 2 blue fetch lands so I can fetch islands when I need to. But yeah, other than that, not much else to really say about the fetch lands. Let's talk about the fetchables. So we have the 3 Surveil lands, 1 of each pairing of color, Trinome, the 2 Shocks, the 2 Steam Vents, 2 Hollow. I'm not going to really talk about that too much. And then we have the 4 basics and the 2 utility lands. We have 2 plains, 2 islands, Mystic Gate, and Arena Glory. So let's talk about a little bit about this, right? So why am I playing the Trinome? The Trinome is there for in the random events that sometimes I draw something like this, right? If I draw a fetch and a couple islands, or I draw a fetch and something like this, right? I can play this and just grab a tri-land, and then that will kind of help fix my hand a little bit of the colors that I need. Most of the time on turn 1, you're not really casting anything anyway, so it's always turn 1, play a fetch either any of the Surveil lands or fetch your Trinome if you need to fix your colors in your hand. That's what the fetch is for, but at the same time, I don't think you really need it. You can play another Shock land, you can play Sacred Foundry, maybe you can play another Arena of Glory, or you can play some other land, right? You can play, or you can play another fetch land instead of the Trinome. But so far, I found that the Trinome is kind of nice to help you out with fixing your colors. I do want another like sources of red, since I only have 6 sources of red, so I wanted to give myself a source of red and a source of blue. There are people that are playing Bosejus and things like that, so they can just snipe your lands, and you kind of really need your ways to keep consistent sources of color. So yeah, the Mystic Gate's there to kind of help fix the planes and the Parlor to give you blue for counter magic, or if you need more, more whites, double whites or something like that, you can use this to fix the islands to make double white for Solitude or Wrath of the Sky. So yeah, those are kind of like your main targets for that. I think maybe double Arena Glory is also nice, but I'm playing counter magic, so I don't really want to double up too much on single sources of mana that don't give me particular colors. There's only 4 lands in this entire deck that doesn't give me blue, so that's why we're just playing that, and we're keeping it that way for now. But you can make changes to the mana base however you feel like, however you're building the deck. But yeah, let's move on to the sideboard real quick, and then we'll go from there. So sideboard wise, I got 2 Surgical, 1 Stone of Eric, 2 Hollow Moonlight, and 2 Purge. So let's kind of talk about this, right? So Hollow Moonlight, pretty good again. A lot of Blink decks, a lot of Reanimator decks, cheating things in, so Hollow Moonlight's really good for that. Cycle's a card, just really good. You can also play Containment Priest if you didn't like Hollow Moonlight, but I like Hollow Moonlight so far, so I'm keeping that in for now. Purge, there's a lot of black decks running around right now. A lot of Esper Reanimator, or Orzhov Reanimators, Orzhov Blink, you name it, they're there. So Purge is good for that. There's also a couple red permanents you can hit too that are sometimes relevant. Maybe Steel Cutter, or Is It? You can hit a couple of the red cards. You can also hit Johnny if you're just playing Boros Energy, right? You can hit, well, not Johnny itself, but you can hit, the you can hit. Sorry, I'm kind of. You can hit Phlages. You can hit the Carbon Bombardment. Just random cards like that. So I think Purge is a good card to play right now. Additional Graveyard Hate here. You had Stone for sacking hate, Graveyard Hate. It's kind of like your all-around card. And then Surgical, the reason why I'm playing Surgical is I kind of use Surgical as more of a Thoughtseize than anything else. If I'm playing against a combo deck, I want to kind of look at their hand just to see if I can safely play my game plan, or do I need to keep up counter magic to stop their game plan. Sometimes you'll hit a combo piece, sometimes you'll hit a Belcher, sometimes you'll hit, if you're playing against Reanimator, you can hit the reanimation target sometimes. So, overall, I think Surgical, if you know how to play with Surgical, it's a good card. If you don't know how to play with Surgical, it's a bad card. So, one of those things where it just takes practice to play with the card correctly, I think. But yeah, not really much else to say about that. For the rest of the sideboard here, we got 3 Charmal, 2 Salty, and 1 of each of my other cards. Aethergus seen better days, but I still like it. I still like it in the event that it's good against Blood Moon. It's good against uncounterable green cards, or if they have Veil of Summers, it dodges Veil by targeting a spell. Yeah, just overall, I've always liked this card. Not too many decks that are relevant right now that are green except for Titan. It also hits red cards, obviously, right? So it's kind of I kind of like pairing it up with Celestial Purge if I'm playing against a deck that I think has Blood Moon. So this is kind of like my choice for like anti Blood Moon there. So yeah, this Ashiot, I think it's Ashiot Dream Render. Ashiot is more of a anti Titan deck card, if anything, because they have really no way of getting rid of this card. The only way they can get rid of this card is if they have Aurora, which is like 4 mana for them to get rid of this, just to bounce it back to your hand, which you can just replay again later. So if you play this on turn 3, they can't get rid of it. They just can't do anything. You just at that point you can kind of set up your game plan. You can kind of prepare for their. They're eventually gonna get rid of it if they have Aurora. If they aren't playing Aurora at all, then they just lose. I played against a Titan player I established on turn 3, and he just couldn't do anything. He cast a Titan for 6 mana. I was like, all right, cool. I'm just gonna get rid of it. I'm just gonna bounce it with Teferi or kill it with Solitude. So yeah, really good card in that particular sense there. For Graveyard Hate, it's mediocre for Graveyard Hate because it costs 3 mana, and so, most of the time if your opponent's a good Reaimer player, they're not going to be leaving stuff in their graveyard for you to kind of kill with Ashiot most of the time. So they'll same turn they'll discard and then reanimate the same turn. So that's where Surgical is a little bit better because it's instant speed. Where Ashiot is, if they have a maybe established graveyard, then it kind of hurts when you exile it. Or if they have like a Flage deck or something like that, then you can kind of hit Flage along with the rest of their graveyard. But yeah, Verdict's seen better days, but it's still there. Sometimes you're playing against like improvised artifact decks, or you're playing against spirits or something like that, and you just need an unconditional board wipe, then it's there. You can also hit Emrakul with this thing, so has its uses, but I think Wrath of the Sky is just better than any of the other board wipes right now. All right, Charmal, just to hit, colorless stuff. Not really much to say about that. A lot of colorless land running around right now. You have a lot of Urza Sagas. You have a lot of Tron lands. You have a lot of Eldrazi lands. So, yeah, I think Charmal does decent against them. Not the best answer, but it's still a decent way to mess with their lands. Salty, in case Force Negation is not good, you're playing against a more creature-based deck, then I guess you can play Salty instead. But yeah, just another decent answer to certain things. Anyways, that's basically it. I went out to a tournament yesterday. Did pretty well. It was 4 rounds. I went 3-1. I beat I beat Titan was the first round, so I beat Titan, 2-0 Titan. And then I played against Eldrazi. I lost that one because game 1 I didn't have any good answers to his board state. Took too much. Actually, game 1 I got Emrakul casted on me. I was being dumb and I tapped out. I had Consigns of Memory, but he had Cavern of Souls anyways. But I forgot. Oh yeah, this is a turn he can just cast freaking Emrakul, and I lost to Emrakul. Game 2 he had a really explosive turn, a really explosive game, or really explosive hand, and I maybe could have won that one if I was kind of mana screwed, or mana. I didn't have the right mana colors, and I didn't have white card for Solitude, so that's how I kind of lost. If I had those cards, I would have been just fine. Would have probably won game 2, but it is what it is, right? Round 3, I played against, I think, Belcher. I lost game 1 because he ended up just being able to get his combo off. But game 2 and 3 just had it locked down with all the counter and interactions. So won that game. Or round 4, played against Dominus Impulse. Or sorry, not Dominus Impulse. That's a Yu-Gi-Oh card. what is it? Mono black Necro Dominance. There you go. Mono black Necro Dominance. I went 2-1 with that one. Game 2 I messed up. So game 2 I didn't realize Necro Dominance. It's a trigger ability at the end of the turn to draw, pay life to draw that many. I had consign of memory to the hand. I could have consigned that. I just didn't realize it worked that way. I thought it worked like Necropotence, where they would just pay that many life and draw that many cards. And I only had like 1 mana open, so I was like, I don't think it's worth it to stop the dominance. Until at the end of the game, he told me, oh, I could have done that. It's like, oh shit, I didn't realize I could have done that. But so I lost the game 2 because he drew a bunch of cards when I could have stopped it. But game 1 and 3, I kind of just steamrolled it because he didn't really have any way of dealing with Nulldrifter efficiently. He was marching for, and he was playing. I think he was marching it for like, 7 or whatever, because Nulldrifter's pretty decent. Or I forgot exactly what happened. He had to give up for Soul Spike and March, so he was down a bunch of cards trying to deal with my Nulldrifters and my Phlages. So that was both game 1 and game 3. That's how I kind of won there. And by the time he got out Necro Dominance, he just didn't have enough life to really pay for it to really turn the game around anyways. So yeah. Anyways, guys, that's it. Let me know what you guys think of the deck. This is kind of my take on the deck, right? It's kind of a hybrid between draw go and being proactive, which can kind of backfire, right? Sometimes you draw a mixture of cards, and you kind of have to make choices whether you want to be proactive or you want to be more defensive and passive. But yeah, that just comes with experience, and a lot of repetition and practice. Unfortunately, I don't play MGTO, so I don't really know how to navigate certain decks super well, or against certain decks, right? So I'm still kind of learning when I'm playing at my locals. But other than that, I feel like the deck does pretty well. It has a lot of times you'll have a full grip of 7 cards when I'm playing this deck. So because Nulldrifter, drawing you a bunch of cards and whatnot, you're always almost having a ton of cards in hand. There's been a few times where I had like 8 cards at the end of the turn. I'm just discarding cards, and but outside of that, I think the deck does pretty well against most matchups. Don't really have a terrible match. I think the worst matchup is probably Eldrazi, from my experience. But every other deck in Modern right now, this deck has a really good time against. I think I played against Mardu and Boros Energy. I beat them both. Not this week, but a couple weeks ago. And a couple other decks. Titan can be kind of mix up. If they draw really well and draw really explosive, then yeah, there's not much you can do. But if the game goes on, the longer the game goes on, you are in a position to just kind of dominate with all of your ways to shut down Titan, from from countering it to dress down to, if they somehow get onto the board, you can consign their Titan trigger, or they're playing Scape Shift and they have an amulet on the board, you can consign the amulet triggers and fuck it, fuck with them that way. There's a bunch of things you can do with this deck against Titans, so I think a Titan matchup is more favored in your end. But yeah, Eldrazi is the only deck I think where this deck struggles against, because of all their stuff is cast triggers. So unless you have consign in your opening hand and you're keeping it, or if they have something like Caverns, that kind of turns off your counter magic, or they get Tron land out and they're casting like Ugins, they're casting Devour of Destinies and things like that, then yeah, that's when this deck can kind of have trouble with. Or you're playing against the combo version of Eldrazi, right? So I think Eldrazi is the main threat to deal with. Zoo, I think you have a pretty decent matchup against. Let me try it. I think Izzet is favorable to us if they are not explosive turn 1 and turn 2. If they're like, they're getting all their cards, they're getting, Corey Steelcutter out, they're getting all that out, then yeah, you're just gonna lose. But if they're just playing really passively as an Izzet deck, then that means you're good to go. You're probably winning that game. So anyways, that's it, guys. yeah, I'll see you guys next time, and peace out.